play like the Oakland A's. I'm sure they'll play the A's. They play every team, so they'll play the A's later this year. I'm looking forward to that series.
Yeah.
I hope. I hope that we can sweep them, right? They're a
Wherever they
mess.
are, West Sacramento or wherever they're
Sacramento
playing.
A's,
Sacramento.
Sacramento O's, the O's. They're not going to be cool.
Sacramento's, yeah, maybe.
1-2. Swinging a drive toward right center. Back goes Robert. Back near the stands. That ball is gone. A game-winning home run for Chris Morel. Can you believe it? Listen to this crowd.
Welcome back to the Brotherly Cubs podcast. I'm John, and that's my brother Zach. We are your brothers who love everything Cubs baseball. If you enjoy talking about the Cubs, then hit that subscribe button, turn on the notifications, and join us every week as we dive into the power, the speed, and the best team in the National League. We like to start off each podcast with a playful question for all 63 of our subscribers. Feel free to put your answer in the comments. Today, Zach, I ask you, was the Cubs and Rockies series played in Alaska or Russia?
Yeah, so good question. It was played in Russia, just outside of Moscow. That's where the Cubs played them. It snowed and rained a couple days this series. So yeah, it was played in Russia.
It's pretty wild, yeah. Played in Russia, and they're also still filming in Russia for Stranger Things. They went back. They went back to. No, I'm just kidding. So we're gonna move on to the latest news. Jameson Taillon will make a rehab start with Double A Tennessee this weekend. That's awesome. And Patrick Wisdom is getting close to rehab games as well. It's also good news. Justin Steele has begun throwing and is estimated to be back at the start of May as he is rebounding from a grade 1 hamstring strain. What are your thoughts on those kind of bullet points there, Zach?
Yeah, so uh Tyone, obviously good news that he's gonna get a rehab start in pretty quick. And Tennessee, it's interesting because it's obviously really cold in April in Iowa. So I'm excited to see him come back. The rotation needs another starter
Yeah.
to sort of get rolling and help us tide over Steele's recovery. Uh, Wisdom, obviously, he's getting closer. They said at the end of the road trip, um, which is like it's I think even after Tyone. So right around the same time that we might get Wisdom back. At that time, you might see Miles Mastrobuoni go down. I would think to replace him at third base, even though that would be a difficult loss because he's speedy. He's got a left-handed bat. He's good. He's a good player. And then Steele, as we talked about last time, trying to be optimistic. Justin Steele has a grade 1 hamstring strain, which is not the end of the world. And losing him for a month sucks, but I looked at sort of like a rough timeline of how long it takes to ramp up. And that's just how long it takes to ramp. Sometimes it takes 3 weeks to ramp up. So
Hmm.
I think that's part of it is even if he was sore for like a week to 10 days and he was actually back up and throwing, I think, during the home opener, that series, he was throwing and the fans and the left field bleachers are going crazy because he was up and throwing, right? Playing catch.
Right.
So it might take him like a week or two to get fully healthy, but then just the ramping up process, as we see here with Tyone, it takes a while. So I'm actually excited for Tyone to get back, and hopefully Ben Brown can sort of fill in for those guys as he did this week.
So just to kind of recap with Tyone, that was his back, right?
Yeah, Tyone's back, so nothing arm related, which is good for mechanics, obviously.
Hmm.
If it was an arm issue, like a forearm or like a shoulder or anything like that, elbow. I definitely think they'd be pretty cautious with getting him ramped up. I think he's already ramped up to over 60 pitches from what I've heard. So it should be only just 2 rehab starts and then he's back in. But that
It's
may take a
awesome.
couple weeks.
Yeah, and then Steele, obviously, I think he was seen throwing at one of the games. They were just kind of warming up a little bit. Um, I think it was the first baseline or something like that before one of the Cubs games. And so it's good to kind of see him, keeping that arm strong and just kind of not losing any, muscle memory with that. So the Cubs are now 4-2 this season. I like to think that they're 3-0. I'm trying to ignore that Rangers series. That was pretty brutal. But the Cubs went 1-2 in the series against the Texas Rangers. They won that third game there. They lost the first two. First one being an incredible back-breaking loss on opening day. Obviously, we lost Justin Steele. And then Adbert Alzolay coughed up the home run to Jankowski, of all people. We lost 2-1 in that game that we saw together. Zach, we'll talk a little bit more about that, but game two was Hendricks. And obviously, we won the series finale, or we won the series finale, sorry, with Jordan Wicks. We won 9-5, so that was a big win to avoid the sweep. What were your thoughts on the Rangers series? I'm kind of interested to know what was your favorite part of that game that we watched on Saturday.
Uh, geez. I mean, the opening day was more, that's a tough one. Opening day was a closer game. Uh,
Yeah,
the game we went to for the audience, John and I went to the second game of the season at Globe Life Field in Arlington, Texas. For those of you who don't know, that's in between Fort Worth and Dallas. It's where the Cowboys play. It's like you can see this that stadium as you roll in. So that game was. I'm trying to think about just the positives from
yeah.
uh Luke Little
We
and Ben
saw
Brown
we saw
pitched.
Crawley from Crawley's
We
Cubs
did
game.
see Paul Zien, I think his name is, aka Crawley's Cubs. I know he does like a Fly the W podcast for 670 The Score. So
Yeah.
shout out to Crawley. He was like 3 rows behind us, which is
Yeah.
crazy.
That
We're
is
like,
pretty
hey, that's
crazy.
him. And we took a picture and yeah, we're shouting him out here. He's a great dude. Great podcast. Go ahead and check them out. Yes, so that was probably the best part. In terms of the game, um, there weren't a lot of positives. Kyle Hendricks got shelled. Luke
To me, it
Little,
was we. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I was
just Luke Little and Ben Brown pitched, and other than that, it was pretty forgettable game.
I was just gonna say, both of us kind of noted all the Cubs fans that were there at the game. It seemed like maybe not half, half and half, but it seemed like a lot. Like when you went into the bathroom, you could see like a bunch of Cubs fans with jerseys, jerseys or whatever. So and they're talking about the game as they're going to the bathroom. But it
Yeah, I
was
mean,
it was cool. I mean, and even one of the vendors at Globe Life Field was pretty funny too. I think he was selling beer or something like that. He seemed like a
oh
really
yeah,
funny guy. So and a lot of the Texas Rangers concession workers were really kind and super thoughtful. They're like, "Do you want to slap some brisket on those nachos?" I was like, "Oh, hell yeah, let's."
I mean they're
So they
brisket
were,
nachos, so
yeah, the brisket nachos. So yeah, they were really nice. Like everybody there at the stadium was really kind and friendly and just kind of helpful. And yeah, the only thing I didn't like was that they didn't accept cash, even though I had like taken out a bunch of cash to pay for all these concessions. But it is
Mhm.
what it is. So because of COVID and all that. So
Right.
but otherwise, I mean, it was great. I mean, it wasn't the best, obvious. The outcome wasn't awesome, but I still had a good time and seeing what Globe Life Field was all about. And so,
Yeah, Dome
um,
Stadium and obviously really friendly workers. Texas is a pretty friendly state.
yeah,
And the Rangers fans are pretty excited. They've just won a World Series, so they're
yeah,
geeked up. It was difficult getting into the game to on our wallets, but yeah,
yeah,
it's awesome. The Cubs travel really well. We
yeah,
saw them before the game throughout at random touristy spots in Fort Worth. So they're everywhere. They obviously some of them traveled in for the game. Some
yeah,
Texas people live in Texas that are Cubs fans, such as myself. Transplants, obviously, people that are from Illinois that moved to the a warmer state as they got older, things of
right,
that nature. But yeah, it's awesome, and I'm just glad they won a game. Basically, that series, I would say. Just Jordan
yeah,
Wicks actually pitched fairly well, got a lot of whiffs, some strikeouts, and some bad defense, which was kind of a theme.
yeah,
That series and even early on, defense has been tricky. So glad they got out of there 1-2, and you can tell that the Rockies sweep was sorely needed. Now they're 4-2, and that sets them up nicely that they didn't get swept and they go and sweep. Like, kind of just hold your ground against these really good teams like the Padres, the Diamondbacks coming up. Hold your ground. Just don't, or I should say the Dodgers. I'm getting even further ahead. Dodgers, Padres, Diamondbacks. It's a
Yeah.
brutal schedule. So go 1-2 on some of those series, right? And if you fall under 500, just don't get swept. And when you face a team like the Rockies, not only is it imperative to win the series, but then if you have an opportunity, sweep. And that's how you pick up games, right? Play like the Oakland A's. I'm sure they'll play the A's. They play every team, so they'll play the A's later this year. I'm looking forward to that series.
Yeah.
I hope. I hope that we can sweep them, right? They're a
Wherever they
mess.
are, West Sacramento or wherever they're
Sacramento
playing.
A's, Sacramento O's, the O's, they're not gonna be cool.
Sacramento's, yeah, maybe. Who knows where they're playing? But yeah, obviously, like you said, I mean, we swept the Rockies. That was huge. Imanaga won the first game, and then 5-0. Assad won 12-2, and then we barely squeaked it out with Brown and Little. Brown and Little did amazing. What are your thoughts on those guys, on Brown and Little? Ben Brown and Luke Little.
Yeah, so Luke Little started the game. It was no surprise that he was just the opener. It
Hmm.
was a surprise that he started like he was going to be the one. I thought it may have been Drew Smiley, or they would have just given it to Ben Brown. They clearly wanted to play the game of put a lefty out there and then ambush them and put a righty in. And Ben Brown pitched spectacularly. I mean, he was great. Now he gave up a couple hits and but even one walk for him in 4 innings
Hmm.
is a massive improvement compared to last year where he had the whiffs, he had the solid, I guess, solid, OPS against or slugging against guys who are not barreling him up very often, except when he was hurt at the end of the year. But
Hmm.
his walks were an issue last year, right? And now this
Right.
game was really good. He only had one walk in 4 innings and the 5 Ks, and the
Yeah.
curveball looked really nasty. Got some ugly check swings, got some softly hit balls. Obviously, a hard hit double which is when he came out and that runner came around to score. So he's
Hmm.
credited with an earned run. But in my head, I'm like, well, he pitched 4 innings. He didn't give up any runs until the inherited runner scored. So
Yeah.
I would say he pitched, really well. Ben
Yeah.
Brown did. And you know, the bullpen obviously fell apart that game.
Right.
Afterwards, the Cubs blew an 8-2 lead and gets tied up. It became 8-3 and then 8-8 in the eighth inning. Almonte and Neris blew the lead that inning.
Yeah.
And then the Cubs rally around a wild pitch strikeout and a single and a fielder's choice. And then Alzolay closing the game, which I learned today was credited with a win because of some new scoring change that Neris didn't get credited with the win. He got credited with the blown save. Old scoring would have been giving him a blown save and a win. So
Oh
they
wow.
just gave Alzolay a win. But just the ability for the team to hold on, sweep, get that ninth run across, and get the win. To me, that's huge because we did see a game last year. I know they blew a lead against the Braves at the end of the year. That was obviously terrible.
Mhm. Yeah.
That was 6-0. They also blew a game. I think it was against the Astros. It may have been in April or May, and it was also a 6-0 game or a
Hmm.
6-run game that they blew. And those games are really hard to come back from. You
Yeah.
you remember them a year later, obviously,
Right.
There's lots of games we don't remember from last year, but you remember those games in which you came back down 5 or 6 runs. I remember the Nelson Velasquez grand slam to tie the game against the Mariners, and then
Yeah.
the the multiple blown leads of 5 and 6 runs against good teams, obviously, but you remember
Hmm.
those. And I mean, I think we'll remember this one, but the playing conditions were, I mean, they were Russian
Difficult.
at
Right.
best.
You're
Yeah, they
Russian.
were.
That's a
It
great way to
was
describe the playing conditions. Russian.
wet and just cold and snowy.
Hostile, just
Hostile conditions. Yeah,
full
just
of many captors and kidnappings,
jeez.
negotiations. Anyways, going back to that first game, I want to talk a little bit about that first game, Zach. It was amazing watching Shota Imanaga pitch. He nearly had a no-hitter.
Yeah.
Um, he already carried a no-hitter into, I think it was the sixth inning or seventh inning. He was just on fire. It was incredible to just watch how he was mixing in his pitches and getting everything, like a lot of swinging strikes using his slider. He had 9 Ks.
The
He only gave
splitter
up
too.
or
I
splitter,
mean,
yeah.
a lot of splitter action, a lot of high fastball. He did
A lot
have
of high
some
fastball, yeah.
like breaking ball whiffs,
Hmm.
and he looks good with it, like as a
Yeah.
three pitch pitcher. But that splitter, guys were just not picking it up at all.
Yeah. It was incredible. I mean, um so he gave up only 2 hits. He didn't have any walks, which is incredible. And obviously 0 runs, and 9 Ks, like we said. So what are your thoughts on Shota's debut, and how excited are you for him this year?
Yeah, this is a massive first start for him. I was a little nervous being it was so cold that Monday game he started. It turned out to be the best weather game of the 3 game series. And really impressive for someone from Japan to
He
come
didn't
over
have any
here.
sleeves or anything, right?
No sleeves, and neither did Brown or Little in
Ben
that other
Brown,
game
yeah.
too. So
Yeah.
I don't know, guys maybe just don't want to get out of their comfort zone. That's probably some of it in terms
Messes with
of
your how you're throwing and
I mean, maybe it messes with your confidence, and yeah, if you're used to like not throwing with sleeves, maybe you don't want to get in your head, right? So yeah, he went
yeah.
out there no sleeves. He got the splitter working. He got the fastball going, and he had some fly balls, right, that dropped down with the wind was blowing in. So he was able to get some hard hit fly balls that dropped into Bellinger and Happ's gloves, and that helped quite a bit for him. It may have been
Hmm.
a different story if the wind was either blowing out or neutral.
Right.
So it was impressive, though. I mean, he went out there into the 6th inning, no hits. I think he may have had a hit by pitch or something. They said it wasn't a perfect game, but then he gave
Okay.
up a hit and then a very soft hit. Uh,
Yeah.
those 2 hits were in that 6th inning, or yeah, the sixth, and then he ended up striking out. I think it was Jones,
Hmm.
you know, and that was, I mean, I think that was the same, you know. Pretty sure that was the same game that Morel hit the Little League 3 run homer, unless that was the Tuesday game. But
Yeah. I can't remember. I'll have to look it up. But
yeah, there was also an important part of the series was Morel hitting what would have just been a single, and Happ was holding at third. Nate Jones was coming in hot, gonna throw the ball. He just whiffed on the ball and it went under his glove all the way to the ivy.
yeah, that was wild.
It would have been bases loaded, so 2 runs score, and then the throw comes in. It's already going to be an error, allowing 2 runs
Hmm.
to score, and then the throw it misses the cutoff man, and then Morel's like, "Screw it, I'm at third. I'm just going to go home." And then they even botched the throw home. It was
Yeah.
like watching 3 errors on one play and 3 runs
Yeah.
scored. It's
It
incredible.
was it was a thing of beauty. Yeah.
The Cubs really benefited from some Rockies errors this series. Some
Yeah.
base running errors. Some I know Amaya had like a 2 run single, and the throw also was like a missed cutoff man where a throw flew in, and the runner from third also scored. So like again, 3 runs on a play that kills you.
Yeah.
So that'll kill you. That'll kill you. So the Cubs need to be careful themselves because Morel had a couple errors in the series.
Hmm.
And if they're going to play him at third, I'm okay with
Yeah.
him playing a couple days a week, but he needs to tighten it up.
Yes, he
And I
does.
think he needs to mostly be the DH until he figures out how to get his mechanics down because they can't afford him. He did hurt Wicks in that game. Luckily, the Cubs won, but
Hmm.
Wicks was credited with 5 runs and only 2 earned. So you can
Yeah.
tell when you see a massive gap between earned runs and total runs, that's a problem for your defense, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's his defense could be the downfall. I mean, he's not going to be able to play third much more longer, if this keeps up. I was trying to figure out what the pace is. It's like one per game. Is it 1 error per game so far? I mean, or
Almost. I mean,
almost.
yeah,
If he'd played third, for a full, 5 or 6 games, maybe it would be about that. But also I was gonna say his errors defensively could spell the end of some playing time, or it could cut into the playing time of someone like Garrett Cooper, because
right.
now if he was the DH, if you have Michael Bush at first, and then
Well,
Garrett
I
Cooper or one of those two, right? I mean,
I do think that against lefties, Garrett Cooper will just straight up play first base. Like Michael Bush will just sit,
yeah.
and then Morel could still DH. But maybe they put Talkman in against righties. Sometimes
Hmm.
they spell Morel just if he needs a day off.
Yeah.
Uh, they're gonna mix and match, I'm sure.
Yeah. They
And
have
we
options.
They do. I mean, we talked about the tricky thing now is if you can't play third, you really run into like a tight roster if PCA comes up.
Hmm.
So if you put PCA in, Bellinger shifts to first, Bush shifts to DH, you wouldn't be able to do that as much if Morel can't play third. So
Right.
I'm hoping like when PCA does come up, that is sort of like sorted out a little bit.
Hmm.
They're gonna need they're doing this experiment because they want to know what they have, right? If
Right.
Morel just cannot play third base defensively, then once they start to get their offense in order, maybe they think about trading him. I don't know. Or
Right.
trading somebody else, right? Or making room for Matt Shaw. Those are all things they have to ask. Like they have to see how Matt Shaw does. And he's starting in Tennessee. Those rosters were just announced. They'll play tomorrow.
Right. And so is Cade Horton, by the way.
Yeah, Cade Horton, good point. Cade Horton starting in Tennessee. I think both guys are going to be there very quickly. I'm
Yeah.
saying like 3 weeks to a month, and then those guys are headed to Iowa when the weather warms up in May.
Yeah. As soon as the weather hits, then they're going, right?
Yeah, as soon as
Um,
it's above 60 consistently, I think they're heading to Iowa.
yeah.
So
There's two other notes here that we have for Seiya Suzuki, who's just absolutely hitting the cover off the ball. 972 OPS. He has 2 home runs and 8 RBI. Christopher Morel, obviously we mentioned him. He has a 1,131 OPS, 2 home runs also, and 4 RBI. You mentioned that he hit that little league home run.
no
Uh,
RBIs there,
no
just strictly
RBI.
a hit.
So, I mean, what are your thoughts on those two guys, real quickly, Zach, on Suzuki and Morel? How excited are you for not only Seiya, I mean, making a big or getting a big start to his season, which is huge, I think, and then Morel obviously continuing where he left
Yeah,
off.
Morel is keeping himself in the lineup with his bat right now, low whiff rate. And he's high exit velos. Seiya had, I think, 6 or 7 games in a row with registering a hard hit ball. It may have been over 100 in 6 straight games. I know it was at least 95 miles an hour.
Hmm.
So he had some unlucky stuff, but then he started to get hot again. And 8 RBIs is really good for 6 games. And these are actually similar sample sizes already to spring training. I know we were hitting like 35, 40 at bats. They're already close to 30 at bats, which is amazing to me. That's what'll happen when you're trying to seriously play games. So as we hit the next pod, they'll probably be closing in on 60 at bats, and then we can take these numbers a little bit more seriously, especially at the end of
Right,
April. That's a really
right,
good checkpoint. Like, okay, how many bats do you have? Do you still have a 1,400 OPS or whatever it is? Like crazy. But
right,
these guys are hot right now and they're carrying the offense.
right.
I just closing thought here before wrap. I'd like to see Nico Horner hit the ball a little bit better.
Yeah,
Dansby has actually looked okay. He's had
yeah.
some
Nick,
balls on the ground, but Nico, I think, will recover. He just needs a little bit of time and he'll get there.
Yeah, I was just gonna say real quick about Nico. It's amazing how much he's swinging at balls that are out of the zone. It's kind of
Mhm.
alarming. So I mean, sometimes it seems like he'll take, and he changes his approach, and then
Mhm.
sometimes it's just he's trying to be too aggressive. And I was hearing something about that. I don't know if it was from Boog or someone else, JD, but they were mentioning that they wanted him to be. Someone told him that he needs to be a little bit more aggressive in his
Mhm.
approach, and I think he's kind of taking that to heart early in the
Right.
season. You can see that. Obviously Dansby, like you said, I mean, I think he had a GIDP the other, was it the Rangers series or something like that, or the Rockies? Might have been the
Mhm.
Rockies, but I do want to see him rebound and from these last few at bats here and just kind of put together some a little bit better at bats.
Yeah, hopefully
So,
they start to turn it up here. But that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us on the Brotherly Cubs podcast. If you have thoughts on today's podcast, comment them below. Or if you have another interesting topic, please let us know. Hit the subscribe button, turn on the notifications, or join the conversation with us on Twitter at Brotherly Cubs, or Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well. I'm Zach. This is my brother John, and we will see you next week as we recap a clash with two NL West rivals as the Cubs face off against the Dodgers for 3 games at Wrigley, and then head to San Diego to take on the Padres for another 3 games. Until next time, thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you later.
Peace.
Listen to this crowd.